Do you ever get frustrated because you just can't find terrific talent on your team? Do you ever get frustrated that people you're working with or the people that are working for you just aren't up to snuff or not what they promised or what you thought they would become? Well, today is your day. I'm Phil Cooke, and we're going to be talking in this episode about how to spot great talent. Hi, I'm Phil Cooke, and thank you so much for joining us. This is a big day today because we're going to be talking about how to spot terrific, talented people. You know, in the 21st century, if you're a leader, particularly a creative leader, finding top-tier talent, people who are really good at what they do, is going to be critical. There's a tight job market right now as a result of the pandemic. As we emerge from this pandemic, people got used to working at home. They got used to taking it easy, and a lot of people simply aren't going back to work. So the fight for really good people is starting, and we're going to see it being tougher and tougher to find truly great talent. Now, here's the problem. Nonprofits, churches, businesses, different organizations we consult with our team at Cooke Media Group, I'm constantly stunned at the number of people that really shouldn't be there. I'm a big advocate of that whole philosophy of you got to get the right people on the bus, you got to get the right people in the right seats, and then you got to get the wrong people off the bus. And companies err in all three areas. Sometimes I'll go into work with a team that they're just not very good. They did not hire people well to begin with. Others have a great team. They're just not in the right role. They're not sitting in the right seats on the bus. And they need to do some shifting to get those people in the right place. And then, of course, there's groups that have people that really need to be off the bus, that have no business being on the team. Now, I'm not an advocate of kicking anybody to the curb. However, I do believe you're not helping people who are not performing well on your team if you just keep them on staff. That's just not going to be helpful. You're giving them a false sense of what success is if you're not sitting down and having a real conversation with them and try to get them plugged into someplace in your organization or outside your organization where they can excel and really do well. We just have to get the wrong people off the bus completely, and it's very important. I actually had an organization I consulted with a number of years ago that had an employee that was such a problem, such a bottleneck, so incompetent at what he did. I actually went to the CEO and said, it would be better for the organization if we just sent this guy home, paid him his full salary. If you can't fire him, pay him his full salary, but send him home. Get him out of the environment, get him out of the workplace. We'll actually do better. And he was an old friend of the CEO's. I think there was a family connection there, so the CEO really didn't want to fire the guy. So we sent him home, literally for a month or maybe 6 weeks, full pay, didn't do a thing. And guess what? The company really improved. Morale improved, productivity improved, everything improved. And finally, the CEO realized just how badly this guy was misaligned in the organization and finally let him go. We, of course, helped him get on into another place where he maybe could do better. But I just thought I'd rather pay the guy full salary and send him home than keep him here and cause such chaos. So finding the right team members is important. I want to give you a handful of suggestions, some techniques to think about as you hire people in the future, because it's going to be so critical to hire really great talent. First of all, and this is going to sound super basic, but first of all is check their references. I know that sounds trite. I know it sounds basic and almost silly, but you'd be amazed at the number of organizations I consult with who never check the references for somebody they hired. They only went by that person's his own experience. They went by what he said he was good at doing. And it didn't take long once they got hired for everybody on the team to realize, hey, they're not really as good as they think they are. Their experience is not as great as they think it is. That doesn't take long. So I'll tell you, it never hurts. I don't care how enthusiastic you are about somebody or how good they pitch themselves or how good they say they are. It's so important to check their references. Now, we know references can be biased, obviously. And so I often will call the references and then ask them for references. Ask them for other people that might give me some insight into that employee, and they're usually able to help. And that can make a huge difference. I think it really does make a difference. So just start basically by calling. I've actually had people that we let go from our team over the last number of years, and I had someone call me about it, and I was very honest. I mean, I didn't want to hurt that person. I didn't want to criticize that person, but I told him honestly how he didn't fit into the team and why. And that guy, I remember that employer said, "Man, that's so insightful. Thank you for being honest with us." So very often references are more honest than you think they might be. And so I just encourage you, start there. Start with, ask for references, call them, call the references of the references. Sometimes that makes a big difference. The second thing is think chemistry. Now, this is fairly simple to understand, but the truth is you want a team that works well together. So when you're trying to spot really great talent, let me just tell you, I'd rather have a fairly average team that loves working together than a brilliant team that can't play well with each other. I think most CEOs, most leaders would tell you the same thing. I think a modest group of people or an average group of people that really likes working well together can do some amazing things when you think of it collectively. But if you've got a team of, particularly if you have 1, 2, 3 geniuses on a much bigger team, and they butt heads and they cause problems. I've done some other podcast episodes on this very issue. I just think chemistry really does matter. And you have to think, I'll trade off a brilliant person for maybe a less than brilliant person if that less than brilliant person works well with other people. The third thing I'd say is avoid catching the expert from afar syndrome. And that simply means we often think that outsider is going to be such a great hire, when the truth is we have inside people that are worthy, that are experienced, that get it, and that could be amazing. I don't know what it is. There's something, and we joke about it all the time because we consult on a freelance basis with different clients, and we often think, if I was hired by some of these clients, the minute they hired me, their perception of me and their estimation of my ability would just drop to zero. There's something that people have about if they're an outsider, they must be brilliant. But my team, probably not so much. And that's a huge problem. That means you haven't got the right team to begin with. But I would just say this, before you bring in that outsider, really take a hard look at people on the inside who you could elevate, who might be ready for that moment in the sun. Now, here's the thing. Outsiders, hey, they've got to learn. It takes time and money to teach them the DNA, to get into the culture, to really understand how the business works, to get along with the other team members and really learn all those relationships. It takes time and effort and money to bring someone from the outside and get them enmeshed in your team. So just avoid the expert from afar syndrome. Sometimes, obviously, an outsider will be brilliant, will be a brilliant hire, and there are super talented people out there. But before you do it, take a hard look at your team. You may have some amazing people inside your organization you've not even thought about or considered because maybe they were being overshadowed by somebody else. Maybe somebody else was taking the credit for their work. Maybe you just haven't noticed. So always look at your team first. The fourth thing is you're looking for top talent, be a coach. One of the greatest ways to spot talent is think the way coaches think. Now, what do coaches do? They don't go out on the field and play. They don't micromanage stuff and run out and whisper in the quarterback's ear right before he hikes the ball. They don't do any of that stuff. They create an environment of excellence. They create an environment where all the players can excel. They support, they advise, they give them, share their experience. But they don't go out and do the playing. So many times we don't spot great talent because we're doing all the work. We're micromanaging organizations. I've worked with several micromanagers and they were kind of OCD and they had to do everything their way. And I'll tell you, there's a lot to be said for learning how to let go. If you can't delegate, you're going to have a lot bigger problems down the road. So always learn to delegate, pass things off, and start thinking as a leader. Start thinking about being a coach. You're encouraging, you're inspiring, you're motivating from the sideline, but you're letting them fly. You're letting them do the work. That's going to reveal top performers quicker than anything. The fifth thing I'd say when you're trying to spot great talent, understand diversity does matter. Now, I know we've heard, in the last number of years, we've heard all kind of the media pounding diversity in. And I think we've seen it used in many wrong ways. We've gone so overboard with diversity. We hire someone who's completely incompetent just so we can say we're diverse. We see that a lot out there. But the truth is, diversity really does matter. If you can find qualified candidates, inspiring and motivated candidates who are diverse. Now, let me say, racially diverse is a big issue and a big part of this. However, it's not the whole mix. Do you have all young people on your team? Do you have all old people on your team? Are they all white guys? Are they all minority women? Let me tell you, you need a mix of a lot of things. You need a mix of political perspectives. You need a mix of age. You need a mix of race. You need a mix of cultural backgrounds. You need to think in terms of getting a mixed team that can do remarkable things together. So diversity, I'm a big fan of diversity, and I don't think we work nearly as hard as we should to create a diverse team, because let me tell you, you're just missing out on other perspectives. If all you have on your team is young minorities or old white guys or, teenagers, whatever, if it's monolithic, if it's all of one thing, you're missing out on a lot of perspectives. So mix it up. Women, men, racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. Think of how you can mix it up, even with experience. I know sometimes it's interesting to throw somebody. I had a friend in Seattle that owned a think tank. He launched a think tank, and major companies would come in when they were stuck in a problem. And the interesting thing about what he did was he would bring in this team. He would create a team that they would have representatives from the company that were struggling with this particular problem. Maybe it was a bicycle company, and they were developing a new bike, but they got stuck. So they would hire this guy, and he would always have their leaders that are working on that project come in, and then he'd bring in a team. But what he would do is he wouldn't bring in bike experts. He'd bring in a military general. He'd bring in an orthopedic surgeon. He'd bring in a housewife. He'd bring in a writer and have them look at the problem from their perspectives. I'm telling you, it was amazing the breakthroughs he had for all kinds of companies. And he had every kind of company under the sun come and consult with his team, because in every case, he would bring in completely wild, off-the-chart people who would bring a totally different perspective. So diversity really matters more than we think it does. And I'd encourage you to check that out. 6, and this is kind of my final encouragement to you is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If you've got a hire that's coming in and that person sounds so amazing, I have second thoughts about it. I'm not saying consider everybody a liar. I'm just saying back up. Maybe the references issue could come into play here again. Maybe looking in the background. I'll give you a great example. I had a guy working for an organization one time who led everybody to believe he'd work for Fox, which everybody assumed was Fox TV National, based here in LA. Everybody just made that assumption, and he led everybody to believe that. But once we did a little closer scrutiny and really started looking, we found out he worked at a Fox TV station somewhere in Iowa, just a local Fox TV station somewhere in Iowa, which is a big difference from producing or directing at Fox TV in LA or Fox TV in New York. A big difference. And people, they don't necessarily have to lie on their resume just to kind of lead you down the wrong path. I make jokes with my friends at Hillsong, that there's probably, I don't think Hillsong has hired as many media people as probably are out there saying they were former Hillsong people. And it happens with Elevation and Lakewood and a lot of places. And when it comes to churches in America, everybody wants to be a former Hillsong guy if they work in media or on a worship team. So I've just seen a lot of those truths really stretched. One guy that I worked with in an organization, I recognized pretty early he had some problems in spite of him having this great resume and saying he came from this amazing church. But once I investigated and I called the church, they said, he didn't actually leave our church. We asked him to leave. There was a lot of behavioral problems and issues that he had that forced us to leave. And I thought the church that hired him never even called. They never went back and checked. They never looked. So just remember, sometimes, and I'm not here to be overly critical or anything, but honestly, if you want to spot top talent, they're humble, they're honest, they're truthful, they don't stretch, they don't lead you down the wrong way. And so always be thinking, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So let's review our list here. Number 1, check references. This all kind of combines. Check references because we just simply don't ask. You know what? I tend to take people at their word. And I'm really terrible about that. And I take people at their word and assume they're going to be honest. And I just find out over and over again, they're not being completely honest when they share with me. So I like to check references and really go back and look at things. The second thing is think chemistry. Chemistry, this is so important. You want kids that play well together in the sandbox. You want a team that works well together, particularly during difficult times. They need to have chemistry that really works together. And as I say, I'd rather hire a less than perfect team if they work really, really well together. Third thing is avoid catching the expert from afar virus. And that's the idea that just because someone's on the outside, they're going to do better work, they're going to be more amazing, they're coming from a higher level. That could be true. It could be true, but chances are you may have someone on the inside of your team that's ready to be elevated to do something remarkable. I mean, on our team, over the years, we've had numerous people that started out as an assistant and then became a producer, became a development executive because they understood our chemistry. They understood the clients we work with. They had already developed relationships. They knew our DNA and what our values and priorities are, and they just worked really hard and eventually were elevated to become amazing people. And so within our company, I didn't have to hire outside people. So always think of who on the inside could be. I mean, you need to spot talent from the inside. That's an art, as well as spotting talent from the outside. Number 4, be a coach. Don't do it for them. Don't play the game for them. Don't micromanage. Inspire, motivate, create a great environment. Then you're able to sit back and see who really excels and see who does remarkable work. Number 5, diversity matters. I'll tell you, diversity in every single perspective you can possibly think of. Racial diversity, political diversity, cultural diversity, ethnic backgrounds, whatever. Think of diversity because it's going to be a real asset to you, male, female, whatever. Diversity really does matter because you want to capture as many perspectives as you possibly can if you want your team to creatively excel. And then finally, just be skeptical. If it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good, then it probably is. If they come in with such an amazing, I had a great interview just recently, actually. I wanted to hire someone on our team, and they were an executive at a major studio here in town. And I was sitting back thinking, wait a second, we're this little boutique company, Cooke Media Group. Why would somebody who had a really great job at a high-level studio, why would they want to come and work for me? And I put it off, and I thought, man, they'd be lucky to snatch. They're going to be kind of expensive, but they'd be lucky to get because their credentials are so amazing. But during the time I was holding off, I discovered that they were about to be let go from that studio because of a personality issue they had. They couldn't get along with anybody. They were butting heads with everybody. They were driving their team crazy. And I thought, you know what? I don't want that on my team. And so just by being skeptical, asking around, I found out why this too good to be true person wanted to come and work for our little company. You just have to be honest and realistic because I think it'll save you so much grief down the road. Spotting creative, brilliant talent is going to be a key for leaders in the 21st century. It's going to be tough out there, I think, in the next few years. And I think the job market being what it is, we need to take a little extra time. Don't just grab whoever walks in the door. Be thinking about, okay, who has the vision? Who has the idea and the values that could help us take our message to the world that we need to hire? Take the time to do it. Follow these principles. Really, really do some research, study, take your time, and pick the kind of people that will help take you from where you are to where you want to be. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I think spotting creative talent is incredibly important. And so I encourage you to share this with people. If you know people that are hiring or frustrated with the team they have in place, I'd encourage you to share this with them. And remember, when it comes to digital media, you need my book. If you haven't ordered it yet, Maximize Your Influence, How to Make Digital Media Work for Your Church, Your Ministry, and You. If you work at a nonprofit, if you work at a church or a ministry organization, I tell you, you need to have this on your desk if you're a leader of that organization. The world has changed. How we get our message out there has changed. And by the way, I talk about working with teams in this book. How the digital era, how the digital age has changed the way we work with teams. So if you want to go deeper than this podcast, you need to get this book, and you can find out how to get it in the show notes. And I encourage you to give to our nonprofit. You know, we have an organization called the Influence Lab, which helps us teach and train Christians internationally to use media to share the gospel. And that's such a need. I see it out there. It's thrilling for us to be able to travel overseas to work with teams who are so creative, but have a passion to share the gospel and want to use media to do it. And so that's what we created the Influence Lab for. And I'd encourage you, influencelab.com, go contribute, go help support what we're doing. I would love to have that kind of support and know that you believe in us and are praying for us and what we're trying to do there. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon with a new episode. And I so appreciate you sharing this, giving us a rating, helping us get the word out because it's so important.